Today, I'm going to introduce you to one of the greatest secret weapons that we have to fight what's going on in the world right now. And it comes in the form of a housewife named Allison McDowell. I love the research that Allison has done. And when you follow the research and follow the money trail, you can see pretty clearly what's going on in the world. So strap yourself in and put your antennas up and get ready for a very interesting conversation. I'll see you at the end. Welcome to Andrea Beeman Speaks Out. This is where you get access to uncensored, holistic, and alternative healing wisdom to support your body, mind, and spirit and help you live a happier and more vibrant life while you're living on planet Earth in a perfectly designed human body. And you get it all without any bullcrap or nonsense. Let's dive into today's episode. Today, I'm excited to share with you Allison McDowell. Allison is a mother and independent researcher based in Philadelphia who blogs at the intersection of race, finance, technology, and nature at wrenchingthegears.com. And I saw her for the first time on a video with Sayer G from Green Med Info. And she was connecting all of the dots and following the money trails and which company was connected to which organization. It was fascinating. And I can see that she was an avid researcher, almost like the old-fashioned reporters and journalists who would really dig their heels into a story and get down to the nitty-gritty no matter who was involved. The kind of reporters who were not being paid to craft a story, but were being paid to seek out the truth. When I listened to Allison speak, I could hear that she was filled with truth. It was at her core, so I immediately invited her to speak up. And here she is today. Welcome, Allison. Thank you for joining me.
Oh, thank you very much. I'm glad to be here. To speak to your people. That's great.
You're happy to be here on the earth or here?
Well, you know what? I think we're where we're supposed to be. So
yes, I think you're right. I think we're exactly where we're supposed to be at the exact right time.
Yeah.
So while you're here, we're actually going to talk about planet Earth. But before we go there, I want to know more about you and your journey. You're an activist, a blogger, a researcher. But what initially inspired you? Like, what was the thing that shifted you into this type of work that you're doing now?
Well, I mean, my path was a little bit different from a lot of people who are, involved in alternative, worldviews, right? Like looking at things from a different lens. And I was a parent and my child was in the Philadelphia public schools, which is we're a large urban district and we were being targeted for all sorts of privatization issues. And I was really just a mom who worked part-time and was in the schools part-time. And then in 2013, Boston Consulting Group closed 23 schools in our city and laid off 3,000 teachers. And at that point, like sort of my naivete around how the world works fell away because I was someone who was raised in a corporate suburb and I'd had a comfortable life and I always understood there was this sense of fairness about the world. And then when you sort of you're thrust into a circumstance where you're like, well, given what I know how the world is supposed to work or how we talk about it working, this is totally not fair. This isn't right. And so I became involved in education at that point and started following money and power behind how had this happened. Because clearly what was taking place in our city with our schools and the children was not benefiting them. It was not really being done. The closures of schools, the imposition of surveillance technologies and digital technologies replacing face-to-face instruction, turning school into just test after test after test was terrible. And so I wanted to figure out what was driving this. And so I'm based in Philadelphia, and a lot of these systems of innovative finance are based here in Wharton Business School, actually, which is part of the University of Pennsylvania. So local things, when you would peel back and see, well, who was connected, mostly this stuff, they brag about it. They assume everyone knows if you're in their circle of what the game is and that no one else is going to bother to look. But if you look at their LinkedIn profiles and the conferences they hold and the white papers they write, they're sort of very clear that this goal is to ultimately transform life on this planet, both human life and the natural world, into digital assets that they can gamble on, really, and control. And that is sort of what's been unfolding over the past year. And so my point came in initially through the public schools, and then, it was hard to get traction because people are so stressed. The teachers were so stressed. And so I ended up doing work with Sherry Honkala and the Poor People's Economic Human Rights Campaign. She did housing justice because the data-driven element that they were using on students, it was the same for healthcare. It was the same for managing poor people. It was the same for social work. All of these systems were, the same playbook was being used on everyone. We're a center of the heroin epidemic here in Philadelphia. So people who are having issues of substance use, they were using the same thing. So I pivoted, and then I just met some really amazing people who are operating outside the normal structure, outside the nonprofit industrial complex, who were not beholden to the big money that was driving everything else. And so that's where I was when, last March hit and everything shut down. And healthcare was really a very small part of my experience. I had written one piece about data-driven health and the Internet of Bodies because the Penn Health System and the Jefferson Health System here in Philadelphia are also a big part of, it's called value-based payment, and the shift towards, datafying Medicaid and Medicare. Like that, my whole world of alternative medicine, holistic healing, like energetic systems, like everything just, it was a huge learning curve for me this past year. So I don't want to say that is my area of expertise at all, but like it all makes sense when you start layering it in. And then once you understand the financial apparatus, the military apparatus, the science apparatus that is pushing what is essentially like a transhumanist program, then you understand why anyone pushing an alternative view around healing or around social relations has to be eliminated, because there's so much writing on them wanting to turn us into part of their computer.
Wow, that's fascinating. The way that you have found your research, I initially thought that you've been doing this for years.
It was like, 2013 was when they closed the schools. In 2016, I started my blog in 2016. So,
But the transhumanist thing, you're just picking up on this within the past year and a half.
Yeah. And I have to say, but once you start walking this road, like you find other people. So like, what I try to do is synthesize information that's given to me by many people. I mean, there are many people who are on the transhumanist front who are far further along around, geoengineering and a lot of freelance work. And I have a friend, she blogs at A Peaceful Mindful, who does a lot with the neurotech and nanotechnology. So, but yeah, I mean, Penn is part of the nanotechnology zone as well. And yesterday I actually I've been running around doing revocations of consent, because my background is actually in art history and historic preservation, like researching landscape. So I go to these places and I'm like, where is this? Like I go to office parks and say, this is where this is. This is the landscape of this future financialized, militarized world. And it doesn't look scary. It just looks like a 5-story glass mid-rise office building, but it's in there and someone has to go and look at it. And so yesterday I went to Pennovation, which is their tech R&D incubator center with, militarized robotics and drones and nanotech, and they have a new biotech center. And, I'm looking into it, and the woman who developed it all is like a pioneer. Her name is Dawn Bunnell in nanotechnology. So I take my dandelions and I check with your nanotechnology, like no one asked us. And it's a former DuPont site. The whole campus was built on a former DuPont Marshall Labs, I believe, and they did Teflon testing there. Mm-hmm. And if anyone has seen the movie Dark Waters, which I highly recommend, the story behind the poisoning of the world with Teflon, and Parkersburg, West Virginia in particular, but the whole world, it makes sense that, okay, so now the next layer of poisoning the environment beyond Teflon, like now we'll just go to nanotech. And we'll not really tell anybody what's going on here. It's under the name of Penn, so it looks really good.
Wow, fascinating. Like I got into this business myself from a health perspective, like I had thyroid disease 25 years ago and I healed it naturally. From that point on, moving forward, I felt intuitively and innately that there was this force trying to separate the human body or the human mind from the human body and disconnect it from the earth. Like we're on the earth, right? We're living on the earth, but there's so many things pulling at the human to disconnect it from its connection to the earth and to the universe and the bigger pictures. So, I mean, that's a much bigger conversation.
Yeah.
But what you're talking about is very practical, very here and now. People can touch it, they can feel it. We know that there was Teflon poisoning. But I think that people are, I don't want to say clueless, Allison, because I just think that they have been hidden away from the truth of who they are and their power. Like you, when you opened up just now and you said, I was just a housewife, right? So for how many years, Allison, has the the powers that be been telling the housewives, you're nothing?
Yeah.
Right?
We were the secret weapon.
That's right. That's right. You're the secret
Everyone's
weapon,
like,
right?
Allison, who do you trust? Who do you trust? You don't trust this. I'm like, I trust actually moms who don't have anything to lose by telling the truth because they're actually after the truth. Those are the people who are with me, like in the education space and then moving along, and not exclusively, I'm not trying to be sexist, but it's like, I'm not saying this, but like even in this point in time, my child and I do not see, we're not on the same path right now, which is really hard because I think in many respects I'm trying to do this because I see this existential shift happening. I think it's my path to they're young adult at this point, but it is coming from that place of trying to sustain life, natural life. And I increasingly talk about it because I work at a public garden when I do this sort of this half time. And I'm not a gardener, but this past year I've been spending more and more time on the land, and I have my fingers all in the dirt today. And it is that connection that we actually have to stand against this nanotech for the unborn who are going to be born into a world that'll be like a planetary computer, but also, Robin Wall Kimmerer is a huge inspiration to me. She's a biologist at the SUNY Forestry School, and her specialty is moss. Like from the tiniest mosses, like it's up to us if we see, for those of us who can actually see it coming, to confront it and say it's not okay. And not everybody can, I get that. But those of us who can, I don't think it's possible to just turn your back on it at this point.
Yeah, well, I'm glad that you're not turning your back on it. You are a wealth of knowledge, sister.
It's a lot. I know. I mean, it's my poor family because I'm always like, and guess what I found out today? And to them, like, it's hard because I think some of this feels like, for me, more information makes me feel more powerful because I feel like I can map it. I make these big maps and I connect them. And then it's like, that's my way of processing. If I can know it, I can sort of contain it, or I can recognize it. And I think for a lot of people, having this disconnected knowledge feels overwhelming. Now, like, what am I supposed to do with this 1,000th other bit of information of how terrible the world is? I think sometimes I get put in a place to know things. I mean, I think on the one hand, I have a depth of knowledge. So I sort of have a schema in my head about global finance, smart technologies, transhumanism. I kind of understand how the machine is supposed to work. And so when I see something, I can like, oh, it fits over in this corner. Like this is how, the California dyslexia bill. Oh, okay, it's about neural digital therapeutics and mind mapping. It fits in over here. And so I have this framework, but a lot of it, like I have collaborators. I have people who come into my life who are sort of like, who share information, and then I dig in, and then it sort of emerges. So a lot of my background came out of work I did around Santa Clara County, California, which is a test bed for this pay for success financial structure that's sort of at the core, that linked with biosensors and wearable technology. So that was relationship based, of someone who had information that I could collaborate with and then expand on that. A woman that I've done amazing work in housing rights. I mean, we just met up at an event, and she's like, there are things that you won't believe. And I was like, oh no, I will. Like we bonded of like, no, I'm one of the people, I will believe you, right? And she's a mom. And so there are people who are put in your path, and then sometimes there'll just be these scenes that sit with you. So this Pennovation campus is on my drive to work, and it's usually at a busy intersection, so the traffic is backed up in rush hour. And it was maybe 2 or 3 years ago, and there's a veterinary center there for dogs, service dogs, I guess. But I was sitting with my car, and I looked over, and there's a big meadow in front of it. And then at the end of the meadow is a big enclosure for drones. That's where they fly the drones for the army. Okay. So there are these pine trees, and I'm sort of just like spaced out waiting for the light to turn. And I look over and there's a German Shepherd with a padded arm in its mouth, like running through the trees. Because the police are training their dogs on this meadow. And so like this is an image that stays with me. I'm like, this is not normal. Like this is not normal that there's this academic campus that looks really normal, although the police are training German Shepherd dogs and there are these labs and there are these other things going on. And so eventually at some point I have to get to the bottom of what that is. It may take a year or two, but I'm like, no, that's, that's something. There's something to that. And so yeah, it's a mix of things: people, connections, relationships, and then being put in places to see things. I ended up spending 20 hours in jail in the spring of 2019. My friend they were occupying the housing authority building that was very corrupt and there's a 10-year wait list on housing. They had a $45 million building and it was just a very corrupt institution and someone had actually firebombed her house. So they were occupying this new $45 million housing authority headquarters. And I just showed up because I'd been bringing them food. And there was they tried to choke someone to death in front of me. Oh and I ended up pulling, trying to separate, not hurt, but that ended up putting me on the inside to see how the system actually operates. Which if I hadn't had that experience, which was, a day and then maybe another 6 months, the charges were eventually all dropped. But the legal system, this idea of what I've written about sort of extensively about an open air digital prison where poor people are managed on pathways with electronic, incarceration, electronic monitoring, and improvement pathways through diversion courts. I wouldn't have known that, but I spent that time and I saw the people who were in there with me who were, a woman who was unhoused who sought shelter in a church was arrested. A woman who someone threw a book bag of pot at her on the subway, arrested. These were not dangerous people. These were people who were being pulled in by the system. So it's sort of been these, sometimes I've just put a place to try to learn something, it feels like. So.
Wow. The fact that you are a hardened criminal actually gives you more credibility now.
I mean, I never, Philadelphia Roundhouse is not a great place to be. It was 50 degrees and it had been raining that day and I was soaking wet, sleeping on a concrete floor with my head on a cheese sandwich. And many people do much worse. I'm not doing this saying I've had this, many people are in far worse situations, but unless you actually can get on the inside sometimes and see how the machine works, and the people who are so traumatized that they don't have the resources to synthesize the information or the time to synthesize the information, who are kept in crisis, those of us who aren't sort of have this duty to piece it together.
You know what? I like that you keep calling it a machine because that's what it seems like it is. We're the human cogs in the machine, and the machine has to run and it has to keep running. But what is the end game? I know it's such a big question, but what do you feel is going on right now in the world today, specifically with the human race?
Well, so I think my framing, given the past year and understanding more transhumanism, but also in the biotechnology space, so biocomputing, the nanorobotics and nanoelectronics, and I would encourage people if they haven't looked up, just to do an online search for the Internet of Bio-Nano Things. Which is essentially this cybernetic future, which is not like you might imagine, oh, here I have a robot arm, it's some big piece. It's these nanoparticles, nanoparticulates, and then understanding the shift around psychological operations to mind. James Giordano at Georgetown talks about the mind being the new battle space. So how does it work with these particulates that may be, we don't know. It's always framed as dual use. So many of the entities that are involved in this were chemical companies. So they poison the environment and then they use the money they make to do genomic cancer research. And then they unlock all of the coding in the genomics. And then they leverage that into biotech therapeutics, which again are dual use. Yes, they might treat cancer, but then they're also being used as a population level eugenics, gene therapies at this point, right? And, I spent some time in Salt Lake City because a lot of this is embedded in Salt Lake City in the early internet days. In fact, the internet was conceived of in Salt Lake City, a ski resort outside Salt Lake City. And they have 1,000 life sciences companies. there when I was prepping for my talk. And, I went to tell people and I said, this might look really good on paper for your state's economy that you have this booming business in life sciences. But ultimately, you have to wonder, how do those companies grow? 1,000 is a lot. If they want to be profitable, either you have to have ever-growing numbers of ill people, or you have to create market streams that healthy people use your products. That's the only two ways, either sick people or well people. And so here we are, right? Here we are with these medical passporting systems moving us towards a system where perfectly healthy people are being compelled to use gene therapies. And that it's a market, it's a global market, and people aren't, same thing in Israel. I've spoken with people in Israel there, nanotech, biotech, computing, surveillance, those are all huge growth industries in Israel, often in collaboration with US military interests too. And I'm saying this might look really good for your economy the last 10 years, but you have to know it's coming after your grandkids. It's coming after everyone. So this end game for me is that artificial intelligence is like the end game settler colonizer. And my framing is always, this didn't just go wrong. This hasn't recently gone wrong. That if we're really honest, and this is what I feel like is this point of reckoning, our country was built on removal of the original people into reservation systems. And that is, if you look at Agenda 21 and smart cities, these mega cities, that's kind of the plan for all of us, right? Like we're all going to be put in the position that the Lakota were in terms of removing your economic independence, removing your sustenance, separating your families, criminalizing your culture. Like that is where this thing goes in the name of sort of this one world order. So the settler colonizer, the difference between colonization, which really these therapeutics are colonizing your cells, they're getting into your cells with the nanotech to change the function of how your cells normally function. But the settler state is the erasure of the existing inhabitants, not just that we want to control you, but that we actually want to eliminate you altogether. And so to me, the natural life of human beings and natural life of all beings, all animals, all plants, is this thing that's coming. And I frame it as sort of like a predator energy, because someone that I draw a lot of inspiration from his teachings was John Trudell, who was a leader of the American Indian movement. And that's how he spoke of it. He said there's a predator energy, and that it is up to those of us to use the intelligence given to us by the creator to put our bodies and minds against the machine of tech. He called it technologic. And so in this moment where everyone for the past fight, especially under the Trump administration, like so much partisanship, so much anger, so much fragmented. Everyone is, in the lead up to the past year, was fragmented along lines of race and class and, identity and all of these things. And then we were physically isolated from one another, right? Like on top of all of that fragmentation, now we are physically kept from each other. This predator energy feeds on that atomization, because isolated, it can extract more out of us, more data, more energy. And so, so that's sort of where it feels like we're at. Like, do we go down the road of the planetary computer, which is what Microsoft is building, what these entities are building with the 5G and 6G and smart cities, biosensors, and barcode of life? Do we do the planetary computer route? Or are we actually saying, no, we are part of a natural web of life, that there is a natural energetic system that is apart from the machine, an engineered machine, and a machine that's engineered by man in a dominating machine, and just realize we are just one sibling in a much larger complex web of relationship. Anyway, that's how I see it, which is kind of a different framing than some of the other ways of thinking about that, if we just went back to the rules of the Constitution, things would be better. And I'm not saying just throw that all away, but I'm like, it was designed a certain way. Right? It was designed with certain intentions, in my opinion. And so this is this reckoning, the global reckoning. What are we? Are we natural beings? Are we engineered beings?
Yeah. Well, I like what you said that, over the past, especially year and a half, you could see all the divisions between the humans. And, there's an old book, I think it's The Art of War, and it's divide and conquer, right? So you divide the masses and you could easily conquer them. So I think that's pretty clear what's going on today, that it's the human race that is the enemy to whatever is going on. And they're either going to use us or destroy us, or both. When I say they, I just mean the whatever you want to call it, dark energy or what you call it, the predator.
The predator energy, yeah.
Predator energy, right? So until we realize that humans are in this together, to remain humans, we are gonna be lost. I read a book years ago by Sylvia Brown called The End of Days, and she wrote it in 2009. And she talked about in that, and she's a psychic.
Okay.
And she talked about in that book, she said the reason why the rates of infertility keep rising among human men and women is because the souls on the other side don't want to incarnate in a species that is dying.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was fascinating. It was
Mm.
fascinating because that came from the psychic
Mm.
perspective, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's a very similar thought that we either have to pull together or we could be lost as a species, just like we have destroyed so many other species
Right.
on our journey, right?
Yeah.
My question to you is, do you think that humans, because we're pretty smart,
Yeah.
we're brilliant, we're perfectly created and designed by the universe. I think that we're great. I don't think we need any nano stuff. I think we're awesome. But do you think that we'll be able to make it through this challenging time, or do you think we're going to get swallowed up by the machine?
Well, I don't think that we end up in the video game. Like, to me, that, I mean, that's sort of really what they're pushing is transhumanism, both the colonization of your physical body, but this digital twinning program, this creation of you in this silicon life form that lives in the virtual world that they can manage. And they're training up the kids in the video games, even in school, the ed tech and the crypto economies, and live as an avatar, and all of that stuff. And so, but I don't think that's how it's supposed to go. Like, to me, I often reference the book A Wrinkle in Time, which I read as an elementary school kid back in the 70s. But it's sort of this intersection of math and physics and time and space and love. And then, like, the younger brother is trapped by IT in this technological space, and the sister, like, love wins. Like, in the end, like, love wins against this very oppressive force. And it's quantum. So to me, and again, I'm not saying I'm any expert in these things, and sometimes I just feel like, I don't know, I'm reading this book right now, The Many Worlds of Hugh Everett III, which is about a many universes theory, and sort of these different perceptions of physics that things break, and there's different universes, like parallel universes happening at the same time. And, like, I keep saying, how do we jump to the one that where your telecom and your phone and your cable company aren't running the prison planet? Like, how do we, like, jump that, right? Because I know somewhere out there's a time frame where it doesn't end like this. Like, we are not captured as cartoon characters by AT&T. I'm pretty sure it's not supposed to end like that. Like, there's supposed to be some climax, da 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 da, and then the next episode, like, it stops. But you have to get there. And I made an acquaintance. I spent some time last summer on Lakota land, and I talked with someone, and they were telling me this story about the creator, getting fed up with humanity and wanting to destroy humanity, and then the eagle, like, said, wait, like, hold on, like, let me go take a look around. And they, it flew for quite a long time, but finally found, like, one man and one woman who had kept the old ways, like the old, ceremonial ways and ways of gratitude in the earth. And they came back, and they're like, okay, but there's, like, still a few people out there who are doing the right thing. And they're like, okay, all right, well, I'll just hold off. And so I sort of feel like whatever this thing is, it's not, I don't think it's a numbers game. Like, I don't think that, like, if we just mobilized, 5 million people in the streets, that would necessarily change the power dynamic. Because, one of the entities that's really pushing the national identity systems and the sort of the one, they've been after a national security identity system for 20 years over. And Larry Ellison at Oracle, like, they're like, yep, in 20 years, this is 2002. In 20 years, there's going to be one national digital identity system, and it's going to be Oracle, and we'll track everything. So that was 2002. So, like, next year is 20 years. And his protege is Mark Benioff of Salesforce. And Salesforce is very central to all of these, the medical passports and the data dashboards for this pay for success finance. And, like, Ellison told Benioff to read The Art of War. And one of the quotes he said, I want our competitors to come at us with aggression. like this forceful aggression. And so I think if they're asking for that, that must advantage them. Like this predator energy feeds off of sort of that sort of angry, energetic system. That's what they want. And that then we should not give that to them. We should find some other way of engaging that is not in the same line of aggression. And so one of the things that I'm proposing, like I've been doing these revocations of consent because a lot of this is weirdly contractual. Like what's coming in this next version of the world as they see it is that the internet comes out of your screen, out of your phone, out of your Fitbit, and lays on the world. The way in which you interact with the physical environment is mediated by smart contracts, these blockchain Ethereum contracts that are almost like Mother May I. Like everything in the world is a Mother May I. And then if you have the blockchain token in your wallet, yes, you may. And then you give the token. May I, get in this ride share? May I get on a bus? May I go in a grocery store? May I go to school? May I get out of my house? If you have a smart lock on your door, all of these things, that is called the spatial web. And they're contracts. It's like it's being laid out right now by all of the major accounting firms, Deloitte, KPMG, Accenture, all the big law firms. They're writing these coded contracts into place. And they're going to roll it out on the world. That is what the 5 and 6G is for. And why our digital identity is so critical. It's not just the medical passporting system. It is how we will be tracked in the spatial web as risk profiling, as human capital investing. So if we revoke these contracts, and it might seem very silly, but I mean, they kind of have to have our consent to do this, is part of how I feel about it. They're just proceeding as if, I've had things with our school district where they would say, well, if you didn't say it wasn't okay, we'll just presume it's okay. Mm-hmm. And if you didn't opt out, you're opted in. And they don't even tell you. And then they send you the letter in the mail at the end of August when everyone's on vacation and you never get it, right? And so I'm here to say, like, these contracts are not okay. You do not have our consent. And so I've gone to like the Bluffdale NSA data center in Salt Lake City. And, I go to Wharton Business School. I'm going to places, and then increasingly we're starting to gather these small groups. And so we launched what we called like a Summer of Love and Healing, this dandelion manifest, which I'm saying, like, people should send me dandelions from all over the world. I got a little box today from Seattle because they're the common plant and they're a medicinal plant. Yes. And they cleanse anger, their bile and liver. And I read that when Theseus fought the Minotaur, Hecate fed him on dandelion greens for 30 days. The Minotaur, in my vision of the world, is Wall Street, which are the ones who are going to be gambling on our lives. And so, so we're taking, like, we're approaching this from a peaceful presentation, but also to say we're revoking these contracts, we're revoking consent, and we're doing it in public ways. And I just hope that the vibrational, because a lot of this feels like signals intelligence, it feels like waveforms, that we send something out and we just say no.
Yeah, I think that's great. Now, let me ask you this. How do we get those consent forms? Like is it coming in on our phone? Like every time they upgrade the phone, they say, oh, you got to sign this thing and that thing, and you have to agree. Is that how it's coming in? And it's like pages and pages and pages of stuff, and who's going to read it?
Right.
So is that how it's coming into us?
Well, so for me, it feels like the future as they imagine they want to accomplish. And we have to understand that this spatial web digital environment, digital twinning, it's military. Mm-hmm. All of this, the internet, the cloud computing, it's a fundamentally military space. And it may be fun, it may let us do fun things. It's a military tool. We have to just understand it as that way. And so everything that's going to come after that, these financial transactions and bets and tracking and surveillance, depend on our digital identity. So right now, you have data everywhere. It's like floating around. And there's hacks and problems. I'm not saying the current way of managing the data, but sometimes they'll create a problem and then present the solution. So the solution will be that you will have a self-sovereign digital identity, which is something they've been working on for 10 or 15 years, the World Wide Web Consortium. And it will likely now be layered in with your medical, biometric passport. But guess what? Then you'll have all of your electronic government relationships on there. You'll have your access to your healthcare or your education voucher or your food assistance or your housing assistance, your voting, your property, all of your credentials. Everything gets layered into this digital identity. And so that is going to run on the 5 and 6G technology. So to me, that is called the Internet of Bodies. I mean, people aren't familiar, just look up the Internet of Bodies. I remember seeing it for the first time like 2 or 3 years ago. Actually, it was Roberto Viola with the EU.
I love him.
Well, he was like the Internet of Humans. He was pitching the Internet of Humans, and he's like the technology guy for the EU. And I'm like, the Internet.
Wait, Alberto Viola, the shaman?
Roberto Viola with the EU. Yeah.
That's so funny.
So Roberto Viola from the EU, and he's like the IT tech telecommunications, and he's talking about the Internet of Humans. And I'm like, wait a minute. And how wonderful this is going to be to have the Internet of Humans. And I'm like, nobody asked us if we wanted to be part of the Internet of Humans. And then it switched like under Davos and World Economic Forum to the Internet of Bodies. And there's actually quite a compelling paper by Rand, we're talking military again, about the risks and opportunities of the Internet of Bodies. And they show all of the sensors, and you've got baby with smart diapers, and you've got, cyborg people, and all how wonderful this all is. And the company that paid for that research is Swiss Re, which is the Swiss reinsurance company. So these literally are people who are betting on us. So to me, it feels like, how do the contracts come in? We cannot get on the blockchain. We cannot allow the Internet of Bodies, this interoperable data system, to happen. Like, that to me is the Achilles heel. It is both the physical telecom infrastructure, the small cell infrastructure now, and what is predicted. I mean, I think they're even talking already up to 7G, or more Gs, way more Gs. Like 6G is robot-to-robot communication and digital twinning. And I didn't even know about 6G, like when I started this. And this is all, so we have to stop the infrastructure, because again, the frequencies I think will cause grave health impacts to all natural life. Because we're water forms, for goodness sakes. I mean, we're way out of water. It's ridiculous to think that adding all of this, this radiation is not going to hurt us, and to not be linked into digital identity. And no one, I think very few people are realizing that these medical passports are the gateway. They understand it as infringing on people's rights, infringing on people's mobility, increasing surveillance. They're not getting the bigger picture. They're not understanding that this is about the spatial web and controlling us, not just around health status, but around everything else.
It's fascinating. When you said Roberto Viola, I thought, I know Alberto Viola.
Okay.
And he's on the opposite side of the spectrum, right? He's bringing back the old ways, like what you were talking about, the eagle that went to search for some people that were doing the old ways, right? So he's teaching the old ways of healing, the old ways of connecting to the planet and connecting to the earth and connecting with the human being. So hopefully Alberto Viola, his mission will get stronger, while Roberto Viola's will get weaker.
Right, exactly. Well, see, and I think that the challenge in this, because the health system is tied in with this financialization. And that's why I was so grateful for Sayre to have the chance to speak to his audience, because I'm like, people who are in alternative spaces are going to have to choose. Will you do something that will align with this Internet of Bodies data aggregation payment system, because then you'll get reimbursement from the government, or are you going to not do that? And as with so many groups, over the past year, it seems like every single group has split. Like, there are people who follow one side of the narrative, and people who are like, no, that's not how I see the world. And so, like, even in the holistic practices, even in meditation groups, even in many of these things, the people who aren't following the mainstream narrative are like, what happened to everybody? I thought you're a holistic healer, and now this is not actually making sense. So part of what I want to mention too, is within this idea of, I think, and it's not my specialty, but like ascension or transition, or this, is that this predator energy is going to use blockchain. So the blockchain is not just to track you in the spatial web, but is actually, all of the data is feeding into the singularity. There's something called Singularity Net that Hanson Robotics, Ben Goertzel, who created Sophia, the humanoid robot. Once, like, the robot has part of a hive mind on blockchain. So once one robot knows it, they all learns a skill, then everything that's connected to that hive mind, it's like a download of everything. But it's mechanical. This is the mechanical world. And the transhumanists are already talking about blockchain cybernetic hive minds, and that you will enter into a hive mind in a transaction, a contract, a blockchain smart contract, with group minds, also with machines. So with other humans and with machines and in these group spaces, and then you will get payment like currency and ideas. And so my concern is that people who are in an alternative framework, some of whom may think, "Ooh, that sounds super duper." Like I feel like I like the idea of transhumanism and being a silicon being and ascending to some larger state of a hive mind, even if it's mechanical. But I just would hope people would be very intentional about knowing that, because I think many aspects of like legitimate ancient practices are being pulled, like there's this vortex and it's getting pulled into like, oh, look, here's a tool we can use to help us do this more efficiently, right? Or across the globe. Or so I don't know. Like I don't know if you sense such things in your worldview, but I think that people just need to be clear. Are we part of the engineered part? Is that your value system, or is that it really is something that is not going to go on that path?
Yeah, I've seen a big divide in the holistic communities. And for myself personally, when I healed my condition naturally 25 years ago, I actually separated myself from the medical establishment. I haven't been a part of a
Yeah.
medical, I haven't had health insurance for 25 years. And people always tell me that's so irresponsible that you don't have health insurance. And I say, no, I don't buy into that system. That system to me has been broken for a long time. It has its good points. You get hit by a bus, you go to the hospital, they put you back together.
Yeah.
But there's so many natural healing methods that we have in our kitchen, in our backyard, in nature, in the world, that have been completely suppressed and oppressed intentionally, so that this pharmaceutical machine can rise up and, I think, destroy the minds of the people. And I'm not saying all pharmaceutical stuff is bad, but there's quite a lot of pharmacology out there that has been changing the brain, the way that the brain works. And I think that people have become complacent and compliant and unable to, and when I say people, I don't mean everyone, but a lot of folks complacent and compliant with what's happening. And maybe that's one of the reasons why they're not rising up and why they're not saying, what the F is going on? Are you kidding me? Like,
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's been the most devastating thing to me for the past year, is being such a part of such a relatively small, I mean, tiny, because, I have thousands of people that seem interested in what I have to say, but yeah, being on the out with so much and really still trying to live my values. Like, how could you be someone who supports social justice and advance biometric geofencing? Like to me, I'm like, it's mind boggling to yeah. I mean, it's been hard.
yeah, it is hard, but you're doing amazing things, Allison. You're bringing people together. You're giving an alternative view, whether or not people have access to it, and whether or not you'd be silenced,
Yeah.
right? Like everybody's being shut down all over the place. That's another story, but at least you're speaking up. You're sharing this information, you're gathering the knowledge, and you're giving people an option. Here's a possibility.
Yeah.
Listen to this.
Yeah.
You're
Okay,
not.
give a good intelligence briefing. Like I don't necessarily have all the people like, okay, so now what is the answer? And I'm like, well, to me, if what we're in is sort of this moment of reckoning, right? Like it's been coming for centuries. Doctrine of domination would just go like, it's coming. Now what do we do with it? And I think so many people are so wrapped up in their worldview that once you question one thing, everything falls apart, and they don't feel strong enough. They feel very fragile to have everything fall apart. And so they just, I'm not going to look. But there is this potential of coming out the other end in some way that, in my opinion, could move towards justice. Not that any of it's going to be easy or rosy or soup, but it has to be a collective decision. And so for me, my position is that I've researched all of these things. I have a schema, how I understand them. I have some tools. I have some people whose teachings I value, who've informed how I think about this. See what resonates with you. And then once we build enough people, then we can say, what is the world we want to build? But it would be very presumptuous of me to say, well, I have the plan, because that would be presuming my version of the world is the world everybody would want. And that's not true, clearly. I'm as much a part of the problem as everybody else is. So, we all have to bring our gifts in. And that's to me like the world that I would want, as a parent of a young adult child. And I can see their frustration, because if the things I say are true, it means that their future is really limited, and that makes them feel terrible. And that's not at all my intention. But we actually have to build a world where everybody's gifts are valued. I mean, not valued in a financial way, but that everyone finds a way to live and share their gifts with the world. I mean, to me, that feels like the basis of it. Like, I don't want a world that scarcity defines everything, and that if you win, it means that you can go abuse other people. Like, to win, that you have to be part of a machine that forces everyone to act as a cog in a computer.
I could be mistaken, but I think that part of the way that humans have lost their way is due to the financial gains. The monetary system that we have in place, it's put profit over people, right? Profit over human life. It's put money above heart and humanity. And I think that I don't know how to get back, right, to another type of system, but it's pretty clear that the biggest financial companies are having the greatest impact on what's happening in the world with human beings.
Yeah.
The financial companies, the tech companies, the big money.
Yeah. Well, it feels like we have a world that's built on war, poisoning, toxins, and debt. So like the global economy right now, those are huge chunks. So how do we claw back? And to me, that is also my framing. And I want to make it very clear, especially as they continue this narrative around China and the social credit scoring system, because I'm like, we developed the credit scoring system. I mean, that's the FICO scores. We've had that back to the 50s. And like, maybe it doesn't surface in maybe, in the same way, but people have been very harmed by their position within the credit scoring system. So like, let's not pretend that it's just on China. They've been able to layer in with US tech involvement, the facial recognition, these other pieces. But what we need is a global peace movement. I mean, to me, that it's like, I said it a couple years ago, I'm like, we need a global peace movement of mothers against the internet bodies, because again, not to say everyone has to believe the same way, but if you don't want to be part of the internet bodies, you don't want your family, because these financial systems, Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan Chase, with UNICEF, they've got it set up where they've got video camera tablets that they'll come into your house and film your parenting to create social impact tokens for investors on blockchain. Wow. Like these pilots are already going. It's in Boa Vista, Brazil. It's in China. So we need to stand with those families against that intrusion into their lives, because guess what? If it's in Boa Vista, Brazil, and that mayor was in New York City with Robert Duger and the Goldman Sachs people and KPMG, it's going to be in like Dubuque, by a couple years from now, right? So we actually have to stand together. So isn't that an amazing opportunity in the face of this really incredible threat to like know our humanity is like parts of this web of relationship, and like to not do war on each other, not harm the environment, and find some other better way out of that. But it's going to be a lot of healing. Like there's emotional healing and trauma. And certainly none of that needs to happen on a dashboard for impact investors. Like it actually has to be the legit work.
Well, it sounds like you're doing that work. Like you're having these gatherings, amazing things that happen when humans get together in a loving embrace, and a loving community. And it sounds like you're creating that.
I don't know what else to do. I can't fix all the things, but I can create space, and we can hold space together to know. And I think if you understand it as a machine, if you understand that we're all parts of it, nobody's outside, and we shouldn't be competing to say somebody's better than somebody else. We're all in it. So how do we start to extract, right? How do we, from our position in this machine, how do we start to back out of it? But we can't even get there if we don't know that the machine exists. So part of this landscape for me is saying, like, it exists, it looks like that. It's not your neighbor who's the problem. It's Michael Bloomberg.
Oh my. He's my neighbor in New York. He's right down the road.
Like, yeah, he's the problem, But I think people make a difference. And if, what? I don't want to fit into this thing they're building. I don't really. I'm not out there to take any crazy risks, but I would rather live a very full life and engage with interesting people with the time I have than to hide around and be afraid.
Yeah.
I mean, I could be having a much more boring midlife crisis than this. I mean, it could be really boring. I mean, I'm sure I would go to some nice restaurants and have, go to some plays, and which were always great. But like, I've learned so much this past year because of people, because of that connection.
Yeah. You said earlier that the predator thrives on anger. I think it also thrives on fear, and that's been the narrative, just to make humans afraid to go out, afraid to connect, afraid to be in community with each other. And we're powerful. We're
Yeah,
really
I think we
powerful
are.
creatures.
Well, it's funny because like I didn't think. I mean, I had been working on education stuff for forever, like for 3 years, right? Nobody was really listening, or a little bit listening, but not really. And like I would have put up like my little videos and have 200 views, and I'd feel like, hey, that's really great, you know what I mean? But and my friend Jason, who we had just connected online. But he knew people in Philadelphia, and he lives in Denver. And in May, he's like, "I'm going to come out and drive out and talk, like film you and talking about this, the impact finance, human capital finance." And I was like, "Really?" It's like, "Yeah, no, this is important. This is the most important thing I can do right now." And I'm like, "Okay, if you say so, you know." And he was right, because that's the piece that has been circulating, like about the fourth industrial revolution. This is before really people were even talking about it. And so yeah, like, but people, I think there's an authenticity. I think if we're coming at this from a place of like legit, like, wow, the settler colonial AI is out there, guys. Let's get there. There's this moment. We choose, and when you choose the green path, then the people who are walking that with you are pretty awesome. So let's make the choice and do that walking. But it's hard because then there's other people who are not with you that you thought would be there.
Oh,
So
yeah. So how can people choose to walk with you? I mean, where can they reach out to find more about what you're doing in the world?
So we're still. So you had mentioned my blog. I'm in the process. I have a colleague who's developing a platform for these revocations, or maybe dandelion manifestos for the summer, and it's called inspiredgroundproject.com, but it's still a bit under construction. So we're getting that started. And so I would say check in there. There's also a platform that we're sharing a lot of information, a shared platform called Silicon Icarus that he's developed. And the Silicon Icarus, I do believe that there is this hubris of Silicon Valley to fly towards the sun with this, like, we're doing this transhumanist project. We're going to change the face of life on Earth.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the wax is going to melt. Like at some point, the wax is going to melt. We just have to stay the course. They're going to plop into the ocean at some point. So I would invite, like, this dandelion summer, I've talked to different people. Like I've talked to like two different like people who are younger than me, and one is like, I really just want to go to the Presidio where the Fourth Industrial Revolution offices are, the World Economic Forum offices are, and sit on the porch and drink a beer and say we're not doing that. I'm like, that sounds great. You go do that. And someone else is like, I'm really about cornhole and frisbee. And I'm like, well, could you go to the Federal Reserve building and like set up on the sidewalk outside the Fed? Because you can express however it is who you are in your beingness in those places. To even go and be in those places is to me an energetic shift. I don't know, it might seem silly, but like if it's like that, or go into aggressive engagements against DARPA and Goldman Sachs, that's what they want. They want us to come at them in a certain way. And I'm like, well, let's go after them with cornhole, beer, and a tea party.
I like the way you're thinking.
That's all I got. I can't promise that it's going to work, but that's what feels right to me anyway.
Well, it feels like it's grassroots. It feels like you and me are sisters from another mother. And we should have been born, we should have been in the 70s, right? Flower children.
Yeah, I know. But without the MK Ultra.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I love your dandelion experience, and I love that you're doing what you're doing in the world. And I am with you. Let's listen to the grandmothers and the mothers.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So people can reach you at, give me the name,
So wrenchinthegears.com is my blog. I also have a YouTube channel still for the time being, just Allison McDowell YouTube.
Good. I'm really looking forward to continuing to connect with you as a human being while we're both living on planet Earth.
Yeah. When I come up to New York, we should be in touch. That would be nice.
Yes, absolutely. I'll bring a 6-pack of beer and a corn. But thank you for your time and your energy and your gifts. Thank you for your gifts.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you for having space to talk and share. And yeah, because I think we are powerful. People just need to know that.
So what are your thoughts? Right? It was an interesting conversation. I've been telling my clients and my students for the past 20 years that I think that we're creating an environment that is only going to be able to be inhabited by robots, right? We're destroying the earth and the soil, and we're polluting the water, and we're polluting the air, right? And making things so that they go 24 hours, right? Who can go 24 hours except for a robot? So, and robots don't need to eat, they don't need to drink, they don't need to breathe air, you just need to plug them in, right? So, so those are my thoughts on where we're headed in the future, right? It's either going to be a robot planet or it's going to be a human planet. But I want to know your thoughts. What did you think of Allison's research? Did any of it resonate with you? Do you think that we can win this war of computer or AI versus human with love? I love that thought, and I hope that we can hold that and resonate in that vibration, because I feel that love is a huge healer. It's probably the number one healer. I know that people are going, oh God, love, what, you're a hippie? Yeah, I am a hippie. I'll admit it right now. I'm a hippie. It's just, I'm in the wrong year, but I'm totally a hippie. And I know it's about peace and love as often as possible. And of course, you still want to be able to punch somebody in the face when you need to. My question to you is, did any of this resonate with you, what Allison was speaking of? Are you okay with being potentially put into a computer system, becoming entrenched in the machine, or do you want to stay out of the machine? You still have a choice right now, today. You still have a choice. So let me know what you think about our conversation. I would love to hear from you. And I'm sending you a whole lot of love and a whole lot of peace on your journey as we navigate the world today. Bye, everybody. Big thanks and a whole lot of love for tuning in today. All we have in life is time, and I am honored that you spent your time with me. If you are inspired and want to learn more, head on over to www.andreabeeman.com and sign up to receive updates about reclaiming your health and your happiness in the most delicious and easy ways.